This is part 2 of multiplying fractions. In this video, we're going to go over how to multiply fractions when we've got like either whole numbers or mixed numbers in the problem. In this case, I have a mixed number, 2 3/4 times 22/15, which happens to be an improper fraction. The key to multiplying fractions is to make sure they both are just simple fractions without having any mixed numbers. So I'm going to change this mixed number to an improper fraction. All right, how do we do that? There will be another video on this, but for now, I'm going to do a little review. The denominator stays the same, and we remember that 2 plus 3/4 means 2 3/4 means 2 plus 3/4. So I do 4 times 2 is 8 plus the numerator is 11. So this is 11/4 times 22/15. And now I proceed as in part 1. I see if there's anything in the numerator that has the same, a common factor with something in the denominator, and 22 and 4 both have a factor of 2. So I'm going to do the quick, dirty way of doing this. I'm going to divide both those numbers by 2, which gives me 11 and 2. And now there's no numerator or denominator that has a common factor. So I've got for my answer 11 times 11 is 121 and 2 times 15 is 30. Now it's perfectly fine to leave that as an improper fraction, but if you want, you could write it as a mixed number by dividing. 30 goes into 121 4 times. That's 120 so far with a remainder of 1. So 4 and 1/30. So either of these are correct answers. Okay, here's another problem. 4 1/2 times 2 1/3. So let's do this one. We need to change each of these mixed numbers to improper fractions. So I know for the first one, 4 1/2, it's going to have the same denominator of 2. I do 2 times 4 plus 1. 2 times 4 is 8 plus 1 is 9. So 4 1/2 is the same as 9 halves. And 2 1/3, that has the same denominator of 3. So 3 times 2 is 6 plus 1 is 7. All right, so now I have to see if there's anything I could cancel. And the 9 and the 3, I could divide each of those numbers by 3. So I divide 3 by 3 is 1, 9 by 3 is 3. And so now I can multiply across the top. 3 times 7 is 21. 2 times 1 is 2. And that's reduced and simplified, or you could write it as a mixed number by taking 21 divided by 2, which is 10 1/2. All right, let's do one right next to it. How about if you had one of the numbers having a whole number? So I might have 6 times 3 2/5. All right, so this is a whole number 6. That can be written as 6 over 1. So you can also take and write any whole number as the whole number over 1. And that way you've written it as a plain old fraction. And now I have 3 2/5. So I have 5 times 3, which is 15, plus 2. 17 is in the numerator. And the denominator is 5. Now in this case, notice that nothing cancels in the numerator and denominator. So I have to do 6 times 17, which is 102, over 5. You could leave that answer that way, or again, you can write it as a mixed number, which will be 20 2/5. All right, here's another problem. 5/12 times 2 1/10. So 5/12 is fine the way it is. And then we want to change 2 1/10 to an improper fraction. So we do 10 times 2 is 20 plus 1, that's 21. All right, now we're going to see if there's any common factor between any of the numerators and the denominators. All right, for 5 has a common factor with 10, you could divide both by 2, and with 12 and 21 has a common factor of 3. Just to be different here, let's do this the other way I've showed you, where you could just the prime factorization of any numbers. So 5, it's already prime factored. 21, 3 times 7. 12, that is 3 times 4, so it's 3 times 2 times 2. And 10 is 2 times 5, or 5 times 2. Then we just cancel out any common factors. So let's see, the 5, there's a 5 in both the numerator and denominator, and a 3. And so what I have left in the numerator is a 7. Remember, I could also put the 1. I only do that when everything cancels out, but it's a good idea to always have it there as a reminder. So I have a 7 in the numerator, and in the denominator of 2 times 2 times 2, or 8. So the answer, I kind of write that fraction funny, is 7/8. Nice and reduced. All right, go ahead and try this one. Put the video on pause and then see how you do. All right, again, 1/4. We can just leave that. It's already a nice simple fraction. And change this mixed number to an improper fraction. So it's going to be sixths. So 6 times 5 is 30, plus 2 is 32. Now, 4 goes into 32, so I could divide top and bottom by both of those numbers by 4. 4 divided by 4, and 32 divided by 4 is 8. And then notice this, you've got 8 over 6. 2 goes into both of those numbers, so you can cancel again, dividing each by 2. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 6 divided by 2 is 3. And like I said, it does sort of get messy here. What I'm left with in the numerator is a 3, and in the denominator, in the numerator is a 4, and in the denominator is a 3. Now, look at this problem. I had 1/4 times 5 and 2/6. What you might have noticed is 2/6 was not reduced in the first place. So, if you would have noticed that, you could have rewritten the problem first as 5 1/3, reduce it, and then change the 5 1/3 to an improper fraction. There would be less canceling at the end. All right, so here, let's do it that way as well. So we have 1/4 times 5 1/3. Again, we're going to change that to an improper fraction. So 3 times 5 is 15, plus the 1 is going to be 16. And now, also 4 goes into 16, so I can cancel the 4 and the 16, divided by 4, divided by 4. So I'm left in the numerator with a 4 again, and in the denominator with a 3, because the 1s aren't going to make any difference here, so I have 4/3. And then, of course, in both of these, you could also write it as 1 1/3. Both of those are correct answers. They're both simplified. It's just that one's written as a mixed number for the final answer, the 1 1/3, and one is written as an improper fraction. If you're directed to write it one way or the other, then you would, obviously either write it as a mixed number or an improper fraction. If it just says simplify, it's really your choice. As long as there's the fraction that's left, there's no common factors in the numerator or denominator, it's simplified and reduced to lowest terms. Let's do one more with a whole number. All right, why don't you try this one? 1 2/3 times 6. All right, let's see. We need to change 1 2/3 to an improper fraction, so it has the same denominator of 3. And 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. So that's how to write 1 2/3 as an improper fraction. And then 6 we also could write as an improper fraction as 6 over 1. And now we see if anything can cancel. There's a common factor of 3, or you could just say 3 goes into 6. So that cancels to 2. And so what do I have left here? In the numerator, I have 5 times 2. And in the denominator, I have 1 times 1. Never leave a fraction with a 1 in the denominator, because remember what this means. It's 10 divided by 1, which is 10. So this is a whole number, and that's the simplified answer. 10 over 1 is not simplified or reduced. So remember, if you have a 1 in the denominator, divide, which of course is just going to give you the numerator for the answer. Okay, so that's multiplying fractions that have either some whole numbers or some mixed numbers.